because at the end of the day, I still want to be able I don't dislike George Washington. I don't dislike even some of the most racist people in history. But I want to know their history, but I also want to know not only that, hey, they were whatever, but I also want to know about the Shirley Chisholms. I also want to know about the Frederick Douglass. And not even Nat Turner. I want to know more about Nat Turner than him just being some revolutionary. I want to know the Nat Turner that was out in the fields. I want to know the Nat Turner that grew up as a kid. I don't want to know just the narrative. Tuned in, start begin, sir. Tuned in, start begin, sir. Tuned in, start begin, sir. Tuned in, start begin, sir.
Q9, my futon, hold it up and smoke it. Transgression, a progression of a war we ain't asked for. Transgression, a progression of a war we ain't asked for.
It's madness, yo. All the things that we could talk about.
Call it.
But let's talk about these urban circumstances real quick.
And basically, it's
we got this.
So,
revolutionary.
Frosty hand. Muhammad is the fame's name, forever stand.
Standing on royal fusing of justice for the few, ridiculed by the pale terrorists bent on genocidal obsession, rooted in fear of neglection and abandonment, fueled by nightmares of ancestors' jealousy.
Truth, because at the end of the day, I still want to be able to I don't dislike George Washington.
The kind of friends I think all friends should be like my friends. My friends are the kind of friends I think everyone needs. My friends see the things at times I don't see. My friends hate the police.
What has changed?
Are deemed the criminals, and the blacks are deemed the criminals.
Shut up and help.
Reflection ain't nothing but the inner child trying to see you. You gonna look? You gonna pick up that book?
Lord, keep me far from the faith. Guide me through night and day. Teach me your ways. Show me the righteous way to sway. Lord, can you teach me, please? Show me the way, I'd say.
Grand Risings, and welcome back to another episode of The Urban Conservative with Chaz Neal. We're excited to have you join us on this journey of thoughtful discourse and community engagement. The Urban Conservative is proudly sponsored by the Leon Block Network, an organization committed to promoting transparency, truth, and accountability in our media landscape. Here at the Urban Conservative, our mission remains steadfast to bring you the latest news directly from the streets, addressing critical topics such as gun violence, crime, politics, and perhaps most importantly, exploring solutions to the profound challenges our communities face. As we embark on this third season, the focus is clear. It's time to actively contribute to the transformation of our communities for the better. How can we achieve this? The answer lies in a multifaceted approach that starts with reconnecting with our core family values, strengthening our sense of community as paramount, fostering bonds that transcend the barriers that often divide us. Moreover, it involves embracing our foundational roots, recognizing the historical and cultural threads that weave through the fabric of our society. In this season, we're calling for more than words. We seek action. It's a plea to move beyond mere rhetoric and engage in tangible, impactful initiatives that contribute to positive change. The time for empty words has passed. Now more than ever, we need to put our convictions into action. Together, united by a common purpose, we can make a substantial and lasting difference in the well-being of our communities. So join us on this journey as we explore not only the challenges, but also the opportunities for growth and progress. Together, let's turn our shared vision for stronger, safer, and more connected communities into a reality. Thank you for being a part of the Urban Conservative with Chaz Neal, a platform dedicated to fostering change and making a positive impact on the world around us. Shut up and help. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning on this beautiful, beautiful Minnesota Wednesday morning. As you can see, I named this episode Unveiling the Illusion. For me, it's about a critically examining examination of contemporary civil rights leadership and nonprofit activism. In this episode, we're going to go on a journey to uncover the truth behind the facade of modern civil rights leadership and nonprofit activism through an in-depth exploration. We're going to look at stuff that we've been promised over the years. We're going to look at things that we have been told and we see as differently. And I also want to talk about double standards. And what I mean by that is I want to go into a little further context of double consciousness. But before we get into any of that, it is an election year. And you know, we do over here talk about politics. We talk about what's going on in our communities, what's going on in the streets. So yesterday there was a bill introduced in a committee, and it really kind of, I can't even say it shocked me, because we're seeing it in Chicago, we're seeing it in New York, we're literally seeing it everywhere. It's not just, in one area right now, it's in a lot of areas. But here is Walter Hudson. We all know, I talk about Walter often.
There's no measure to follow up.
You guys to listen to this. So it is a Minnesota Basic Income Grant Program established, report required, and money appropriated. So I want people to listen, right? Because Walter brings up some very great points.
Program would provide direct monthly cash payments of at least $500 for 18 to 24 months.
As I see it, there are no quality controls on those nonprofits. We're looking at potentially a situation where none of the lessons learned from Feeding Our Future have been applied. There's no measure to follow up with these nonprofits or their cash recipients to verify who's getting the money. Once somebody is certified, which apparently just requires them to attest that they qualify, there's no requirement to recertify. That's in line 224. There's no guardrails to prevent kickback schemes. There's no controls or limits on administrative costs. This program very explicitly would provide support to illegal immigrants. We're not even going to question that. There's not going to be any documentation whatsoever. In fact, I believe in line 3.2, it explicitly says individuals and families who have recently relocated to Minnesota from other states or other countries. And we're just not going to verify citizenship. That's in 227.
We earn $5.8 billion off the backs of undocumented immigrants in the state of Minnesota. $1 billion. They are paying taxes, and we should be supporting them as a member of our community.
So I want to know of how they pay taxes. If they're undocumented and they're not allowed to work, how do you pay taxes? If you're that's what I don't understand, right? Because I'm glad this Miss Westland or whatever her name is, because you should be behind reparations for Minnesotans, Black Americans that live in Minnesota, then, for the simple fact of that off our backs we built Minnesota. You should be behind reparations, right? If we're going to talk about what's fair and what's right, ma'am, because you're sitting here talking about people that just got over here and haven't done anything for our country. And you're saying that $5.8 billion a year off of what you're just saying is illegal labor. Am I right or am I wrong? Did she not? Let's go back and listen to that again, right? Because I just, maybe I'm missing something, right? Maybe I'm missing something. So let's see what Ms. Westland said.
Verify citizenship, that's in 227.
We earn $5.8 billion off the backs of undocumented.
Okay, hold on. We earn
$5.8 billion off the backs of undocumented immigrants in the state.
So they earn. So that doesn't mean that they pay taxes. That means that the state earns money off of undocumented immigrants, because you can't pay taxes if you are undocumented. If you don't have a social security number, if you can't e-verify, how are you paying taxes? So I really want to ask this lady, how are they paying taxes if they don't have any of that information? If they don't have any of that, how are they paying taxes, right? Because what's happening is that our U.S. state government of Minnesota is making money off the backs of those people. What you want to do is give it back to them. Let's be honest here, right? Let's be dead ass honest. Because what you're doing is you're making it easier for them to have the same rights and freedoms that my people have died over. That plenty of Black Americans ancestors have died over, and yet we're seeing this bow down. We're seeing this this pandering that is going on in the world, and yet there's conflicts going on in Haiti, Ukraine, Gaza, Sudan, and yet we're taking all of these refugees because just yesterday they clearly stated that the Biden administration said that there would be an influx of Haitians coming through Florida. So it's like how we got all of these different countries, different continents, right, of people coming in, because we've seen the videos from Mexico, right? We've seen the videos of people saying they were going to Chicago, they were going to Philly, they were going to Denver, Oklahoma, and different places, which are Democratic ran areas, because they understand. And here, or maybe they don't. This is the one thing that I will never understand, right? Is how are these people being directed to go to certain places? I understand they probably have family members. You get what I'm saying? Or people that they maybe have met, but it's like, how? Like, when are we going to finally stand up for something? Because, and that's why I literally wanted to talk about this double consciousness today and W.E. Du Bois, because I heard a lot of things. I was at work last night and I was listening to a space. They were talking about reparations and, Black Americans, and what is the best route to, get reparations. And a man brought up a great point talking about our civil rights leaders and nonprofits. And I had to really think about it, because it's like I see all of these organizations out here, these civil rights, and they say they're fighting for our rights, right? They say they're fighting for our freedoms. They say they're fighting to better our communities. But the only thing that I see getting better is their bank accounts, their lives. I don't see the community that they so-called work for getting better. And it's something that, even I think that's why, Malcolm X, Marcus Garvey, and the Black Panthers are talked about differently and looked at differently, because of the simple fact of they didn't take money from the government to better their communities. They built what's inside of it. They built what's inside of it to better it, right? And they didn't want it. The same thing with Black Wall Street. The same thing with any Black community that they got rid of. It was about a village. It was about bettering, and we don't have that anymore. And we have to wonder, why is it set up like that? And I'm starting to really think that it's, I look at it, it's like, again, I'm going to say back to that double consciousness of, why do we want to sit here and be like something else when they don't even like us? You get what I'm saying? Like, bless up. Like, for real though, why do we want to put ourselves into a different certain category when they'll never see us as that category, right? Because it's Black excellence. Well, we got it there, because there isn't no white excellence. There isn't no Hispanic excellence. There is no Asian excellence, right? But when we come on, we always want to put ourselves and look at ourselves and compare, when honestly, why, when we're different? Grand risings, why do we want to compare ourselves to something that we're totally different, right? Because one thing that was talked about yesterday in the space that I was listening to was about, when it comes to census records and what Black and African American means, and you go through the numbers, and it really makes me wonder, because there is records out there, there is data and statistics out there that, can basically, I don't know if I can really tell if it's, Black Americans or their, their ethnicity from Africa, or Jamaica or Haitian, whatever they want to do, whatever. But there's like 47 million Blacks, right? But then when it comes down to it, they say that it's only 13% of those are actually people, African descendants of slavery. So it's like, you can only put a percentage, you can't put a number to it. So I look at it as, when we come to this talk about reparations and all these other things that have to do with Black Americans, how many people that are actually out here, we see this Black Lives Matter, but what the fuck is Black? Because I don't even consider myself Black anymore. So what is that? What is that? Because what is Black? When you look at Black, it's bunched up. It's bunched into a lot of shit. White ain't even white, because if you see, Puerto Ricans can be clarified as white. We just talked about this yesterday in a Twitter space of what is even white. When you look at the census records of what can be clarified as white, and you look at it like, damn, they don't. What? That's why I say there isn't even white supremacy. What the fuck is white supremacy? Because when you look up the census records of what white actually is, and you're like, damn. So how is that white supremacy if this Dominican motherfucker over here is considered white? And no disrespect to the Dominicans. I love y'all. Love them, you know what I'm saying? I just said it like that. I don't mean no disrespect. But I'm like, damn. And then I look at all these groups and these nonprofits, and I look at their agenda, right? I look at the NAACP. I look at Black Lives Matter, the ACLU, the Black Brotherhood. I'll put them in there. And it's like, damn, I see why we don't get nowhere. I see why we don't get nowhere. For the simple fact, though, that you literally have all of these groups and these nonprofits that have 5013Cs. Oh, I didn't mean it like as a race. Right. No, I'm just saying, though, but when you look up the census records, no. I know you're trying to correct me. I know how we do this. But when you sitting there, but when you literally look up that shit, it's like, it makes me really wonder. And that's why I want to look, why do we compare? And because we have a different experience. When you literally look up Black, and then it makes me wonder, because I'll tell you right now, I see a lot of things going on Twitter in these spaces, or I see different content creators or, activists on either side are really fear-mongering right now, especially when it comes to different ethnicity groups, especially, with Haitians right now. I don't know. I find it funny because I never really knew who barbecue was until just recently. But you hear the name barbecue, right? And then you hear about cannibalism or whatever. And it's like, all I hear, they like that. And then they show these videos. I'm going to tell you, Twitter, Elon, use a motherfucker, dog. Because I'll tell you right now, half the shit that I see on Twitter would put people in Facebook jail for years. Mark would ban them. Because when you literally see groups of people together and you see like they're barbecuing like human, you can tell that it's a human body, like a body part. And it's like, and I get each their own that I don't like. I can't say that I disagree with it because that's not something that is normal to us over here eating each other. So just like, in different countries, they have different delicacies. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what type of shit Megan Thee Stallion over there eating. I had to stop watching her Instagram shit because, like, lady, what is you doing? But just like monkey brains is a delicacy in some countries, snake is a delicacy. Scorpions or shit. I like goat, and there's a lot of people in America that don't like goat meat, even though it's one of the most healthiest meats in the world. Goat is, but people be like, "Oh, what the fuck?" Well, what's crazy is most people don't even know it that they're eating goat. You can sit there and tell people that they're eating a pot roast, a beef roast, and it could actually be goat, and they won't even know it. That's because there's not much difference between the texture, between the taste. There's definitely not much difference. And I know most people like this Negro weird. No, it's not weird. It's just like here. I remember, when my kids were young and going to Walmart and seeing the Amish kids playing video games. Walmart used to have the little PlayStation. I don't know why I still got this goofy ass lady up. My bad, y'all. I'm gonna remove it. But they go in there playing video games, and the kids be like, "Damn, don't they have any type of that shit at home?" Like, well, it's different. They don't, don't have electricity or do this and that. And they be like, "Damn, that's weird." Oh, it's not weird. It's just that they live differently. It doesn't make it weird or different. I mean, it is different, but it doesn't make it that it's not normal. It's just that we don't understand it because we don't live like that. Does it make it wrong? No, it doesn't. Should we maybe try to understand? Yes, we should. So that's why I say it's the same thing when it comes to, people that are gay, trans, whatever. We should understand it. Doesn't mean that we have to accept it, but to understand something and to make people feel wanted. Because at the end of the day, we're all human beings. We just choose to look at people and point out the differences between us. Because at the end of the day, there isn't any differences between us. We all have 10 fingers. We all have 10 toes. We all got the nose. Some might be bigger. Some might be wider. Some might have bigger ears like Dumbo, right? We all got 2 lips. Some have all their teeth. Some have maybe half. Maybe some got 10. Maybe some only got 1 right there in the middle. You know what I'm saying? Maybe only got 1, got that snaggle too. But hey, we're all the same. But we choose to look at people and choose to dislike them because of reasons that we don't maybe not understand or that we just can't comprehend. And it's not for us to maybe understand or comprehend. But if we love that person, we shouldn't see the difference because we're all human beings. We're all human beings, right? But we choose to. We choose to. And it even comes with this immigrant stuff, right? I choose to see that they're different because of the simple fact that when it comes to politics, And that's crazy. All because of politics. It's not that I dislike them. I dislike the fact that Democrats and Republicans make this such a bigger issue when we have so many problems in America, right? That we don't even want to face, but we want to help refugees. I get it. I'm not saying that it's wrong, but let's stop being Captain Save-A-Ho and let's start really looking at our issues, right? Let's stop being Captain Save-A-Ho. Like E40 said, is a should I save her? I want to be saved. Come on, like, then we learn growing up, it ain't tricking if you got it. We ain't got it, man. So we tricking. Like, come on. Like, we out here tricking bad because we wouldn't be in debt so bad if we weren't. Come on. So why are we out here tricking? America, Biden, why are we out here tricking? That's what I want to know. Because if y'all put the street shit to the politics shit, there ain't no difference. Ain't no difference. No difference. You know what's crazy is I listen to Biggie's song, The 10 Crack Commandments, a lot, right? Because I feel like that's a code you should live by, right? But if we put that shit into the politics, it's the same fucking way, right? A snake is a snake. It doesn't matter if it's a whistleblower or hold on, let me take that back. Not a whistleblower, right? That's what they'll call it, or a snitch on the streets, right? There's no difference. It's somebody out there telling the truth. It's somebody out there not a part of a crime that sees wrong, but yet America will see it as wrong, right? Stop it. Like, what the fuck is wrong with us? What is wrong with us? And there's no difference we see when it comes to politics and them wanting to stay in power. Because what do? They'll hire people to get rid of that problem. There's no difference in the streets because they do the same thing. It's called a hit, right? Come on, there's war in politics. We just don't see it. We just don't see it. Or maybe we do see it and prefer not to see it. But so let me get into this double consciousness in Booker T. Washington, W.E. Du Bois, and basically explaining, and then we're gonna have a little bit more conversation. So let's get into it. Because I know y'all tired of listening to my raspy ass voice at this point.
Today's lesson is steeped in philosophy. Now, before you get too stressed out because philosophy seems overly complex and abstract, you should remind yourself that we actually wrestle with philosophical questions every day. Like, why did the chicken cross the road? Or what came first, the chicken or the egg? Or if you're my toddler, if I eat a lot of chicken, will I turn into a chicken? We've also seen great leaders throughout history challenge one another based on philosophies that they live by, like Thomas Jefferson versus Alexander Hamilton, or even that short-lived spat between Captain America and Iron Man. In this episode, we'll unpack the competing philosophies of Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. Du Bois, two great political leaders in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, a time when many Black Americans were still trying to figure out the best way to be a part of this country. In this scenario, Booker T. Washington, civil rights activist, philosopher, and writer, is the proverbial chicken that came before Du Bois's egg, or the egg before the chicken. Anyway, you know what I mean. Washington was born in Franklin County, Virginia in 1856 to an enslaved woman. His father, from what we know, was a white man who he didn't know. In 1865, after emancipation, Washington's family relocated to West Virginia when he was 9 years old, and where he worked in the mines as a child. Washington also attended local schools and colleges, including Hampton Institute in Hampton, Virginia, before going to Wayland Seminary in Washington, D.C. Washington's philosophy was centered on the idea of self-sufficiency. He emphasized Black economic freedom and argued that Black Americans would gain acceptance and economic stability in society through their skills and labor. He famously advocated for this approach in the 1895 Atlanta Compromise speech, in which Washington pushed for Black uplift through self-improvement and attempting to dignify and glorify common labor, as opposed to attempting to directly challenge and fight back against Jim Crow segregation. People tend to give Washington a hard time about this, and in some ways, that's understandable. But we should remember the larger context of this moment. This was a period of time when black lynchings were peaking throughout the South. Many black folks were scared. And as the most prominent black leader, Washington was trying to reassure the larger white community that if they just let black people be, farm their land, work their jobs, and get a basic education, they wouldn't push back against the larger Jim Crow system. But just because he championed gaining acceptance from whites through industriousness and labor, that didn't mean that he was necessarily keen on the idea of black people integrating into the larger white community. Again, he was thinking of black economic stability, but also safety from racial violence. In the Atlanta Compromise speech, he said, quote, "In all things that are purely social, we can be as separate as the fingers, yet one as the hand, in all things essential to mutual progress." He was basically saying, you all do your thing, we'll do our thing, and everything will be okay. Cool? Washington later wrote in his essay, Industrial Education for the Negro, "For years to come, the education of the people of my race should be so directed that the greatest proportion of the mental strength of the masses will be brought to bear upon the everyday practical things of life, upon something that is needed to be done, and something which they will be permitted to do in the community in which they reside." Washington published his seminal work, Up from Slavery, in 1901. In this book, he urged black people in the South to obey segregation laws and show deference to white authorities to keep the peace. And while Washington's philosophies gained a pretty substantial following, those ideas weren't enough for the people who wanted to see more immediate change. In fact, other black leaders of the time felt his approach was way too submissive. They believed that a stronger, more direct approach was necessary in order for black people to achieve true equality and civil rights. The most outspoken critic of Washington's work would be the sociologist and civil rights leader, W.E.B. Du Bois. When we look at Du Bois's background, it becomes more clear how he had a difficult time relating to what Washington was advocating for. Born in 1868, 3 years after the Civil War in Great Barrington, Massachusetts, Du Bois didn't have the same direct experience with slavery that Washington did. We should name it directly. Washington was born into slavery, and Du Bois was not. And these two realities played a large role in shaping how each of them would imagine the best way for black people to achieve upward mobility. Du Bois's mother was a domestic laborer, and his father was a barber who left the family when Du Bois was very young. Like Washington, Du Bois excelled in his studies and had aspirations of attaining higher education. Members of his community and several churches raised money for his college tuition, which helped him to actualize his goals. He attended the historically black Fisk University in Nashville, Tennessee, where he got his first bachelor's, and then Harvard University, where he got his second bachelor's, and then later his PhD. He became the first black person to receive a doctorate in the history of Harvard. This is also where I got my PhD a few years ago. And I remember standing in front of the home where Du Bois used to live and thinking about how he paved the way for folks like me to be able to attend a place like this. Du Bois, who also spent time in graduate school studying under the tutelage of world-renowned social scientists in Berlin, wanted to use his scholarship to study how black people lived in America and illuminate the realities that they were subjected to. In fact, his 1899 work, The Philadelphia Negro, remains one of the most significant studies of sociology, and many scholars think of him as one of the founding fathers of the discipline. But that was far from Du Bois's only scholarly contribution. Perhaps his most widely known idea came from his 1903 book, The Souls of Black Folk, and that idea is known as double consciousness. He describes the mechanism as a veil, stating, quote, "The Negro is a sort of seventh son, born with a veil and gifted with second sight in this American world, a world which yields him no self-consciousness, but only lets him see himself through the revelation of the other world. It is a peculiar sensation, this double consciousness, this sense of always looking at oneself through the eyes of others, of measuring one's soul by the tape of a world that looks on in amused contempt and pity. One feels his own two-ness, an American, a Negro, two souls, two thoughts, two unreconciled strivings, two warring ideals in one dark body, whose dogged strength alone keeps it from being torn asunder. In short, double consciousness captures the cognitive dissonance of being black in America. You're American, and you're black, and you live in a country where there are always people and systems reminding you, in ways large and small, that those two identities are incompatible. And as important as Du Bois's work has been, some of it did fall short of being inclusive of all Black people. Du Bois, for example, proposed this idea of the talented 10th, which he outlined in a piece that he contributed to a 1903 book entitled The Negro Problem, a collection of essays, ironically, in which Washington's industrial education for the Negro also appeared. Du Bois emphasized the necessity for higher education in the humanities to develop the leadership capacity among the most capable 10% of Black men. He wrote, "The Negro race, like all races, is going to be saved by its exceptional men. The problem of education, then, among Negroes, must first of all deal with the talented 10th. It is the problem of developing the best of this race, that they may guide the mass away from the contamination and death of the worst." Du Bois believed that Black people will be led and uplifted by the most talented and classically trained men of the race. This framework, though, was questionable. First off, Du Bois was only referring to men. Secondly, he had this idea that being college educated and classically trained was the best way for Black people to reach their full potential. And that's just a narrow and pretty misguided way to think about Black mobility. Based on this belief, he established a group of elites called the Niagara Movement in 1905. Additionally, he was also among the most prominent political leaders who founded the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People in 1909. And while the NAACP remains an important organization in America today, people largely reject the idea that only the elite in any community can make change. And to his credit, later in his life, Du Bois would attempt to clarify and kind of walk back some of this original framing in order to think more inclusively about what Black upward mobility could look like. The truth is, both of these men, for all of the flaws that we might now look back and see in their respective frameworks, were attempting to do the best that they could on behalf of communities they loved and cared about. And it's worth noting that it's not like Washington didn't care about civil rights. It's just that the sort of agitation that Du Bois advocated for, demanding immediate social and political change, had different risk implications in the South. Washington feared that any sort of confrontation between Black and white people would end up in disaster for Black people, and that some semblance of cooperation with white America was how Black people could stave off racial violence. What some don't know, however, and that what scholars have more recently brought to light, is that secretly, Washington funded and supported civil rights cases that attempted to give Black people the right to vote. Still, the competing visions of Washington and Du Bois helped make clear that Black thinking, Black politics, Black philosophy, and Black conceptions of how to make progress in America are not, and have never been, monolithic. Black life in America is made better with Black folks of all different sensibilities advocating for a more just society. Both Washington and Du Bois's contributions laid the groundwork for many of the Black leaders who would come after them. Leaders who would learn from both the positive and not so positive aspects of each of the men's work. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.
Interesting. So what do people think about that? Excuse me. You know, I find it, you know, when we know better, we do better. And I think that if people, because as you can see, as our leaders, as they started to see things differently, they went in different directions, regardless if it was Malcolm, if it was Martin. You know, they seen flaws, you know, because everybody, even with me, myself, I believe that, you know, when I was a part of, you know, authoring a resolution proclaiming racism a public health crisis, public health emergency, you know, I was like, oh yeah, this is gonna do a lot of good things. You know what I'm saying? I was like, oh, this is gonna be great. You know, the same thing came with the rental licensing program. I thought that was gonna help a lot of people. But then I've seen that, people have to want to make change. Some people just talk it, which I'm talking about, that's both sides, so I feel like that's why we don't get anywhere, because everything has to be involved around, instead of just doing for ourselves. It's always, having them be involved. And that's where it starts to get in. And I've thought, it's crazy, Mike. I've been asked, so I'm going to answer you. It has been rewritten. Me and Red Heart redid it last year. But Mayor Wilson felt like it, and I can email it all to you, because we did rewrite it where it was more in depth and in detail about Black Americans and about the disparities, and actually, forcing them to do things when it came to policies and hiring practices. And of course, because I will do that as soon as I get off here. I will email that to you, because that was something that I definitely wanted to do, because that resolution, I threw my whole heart into, and I know others did as well. And I know that, others, like Red Heart started seeing differently. That was somebody that was wholeheartedly against, maybe not wholeheartedly, but was against the resolution at first. But then after doing research and doing digging with data and statistics, could see that, if done correctly, it could make a difference in people's lives, not just, of one or two, but a whole community, and actually want people to actually come live inside that community, because, they say that Red Wing is welcome to all. It's not. But that's not even has to do with just white people. I mean, Black people. It has to do with white people too, because if you're not from around there, they call you a transplant, or you're not from around there. But I wanted to change it so that everybody was welcomed. I sit here and I talk about this because the Red Wing Police just did something with the community kids, and all you ever see is majority is white kids. And it's like, why don't you ever see, the minority community there? Why don't you ever see the Black community? You do see a far and few between, but it's like, why don't you see more of them come out? And nobody ever questions that maybe there's underlying issues going on. Maybe that people have called the Red Wing police. Even in Minneapolis, this isn't just Red Wing. I'm talking about Rochester, weird ass too. People have their own experiences or perspectives when it comes to dealing with police, and some prefer not to support them. Some prefer to just fuck 12 and just keep it what it is, what it was. You know what I'm saying? They should go back to police in the park. There's a lot of things that I believe that police should be doing, and they're not doing. It's just like I said on here yesterday, when talking about the overdoses are upticking in that area again, is there's not enough resources. There's not enough people that really stand up against the fentanyl. They don't stand up against their friends. They don't call them out. And that's part of the problem, because until we're comfortable into actually calling out the wrong and not just looking the other way when it doesn't pertain to us, we'll definitely be a better society. And I think that's one thing that people are afraid of, because when you're just that one person standing up and you're going up against the masses, you're going to feel like you don't have any power. Well, I'm going to tell you, you're wrong. You do have the power, because the truth is always right. The truth will always prevail. And I don't know how many times we've seen that the truth will always prevail, but we got to keep on fighting. We got to keep on fighting, because the truth will prevail, and it might take time, but we got to think this is a marathon. It doesn't just happen overnight. Change doesn't. But we got to make progress forward. We can't just keep on taking a couple steps forward and then taking a bunch backwards, where we got to start all over, because that's where, what's crazy is in that video I just showed about W.E. Du Bois and Booker T. Washington, was the fact that W.E. got his PhD from Harvard way before 1965, way before affirmative action, way before the Brown versus Board of Education. This man, that's what I'm saying, is like, why don't we look at our leaders that actually had to go through some shit, that they didn't have legislation written for them, affirmative action, or DEI. We don't even look at that shit. The hurdles, the life obstacles that they had to go through. Because I can guarantee you that him being a PhD, what's crazy is I'm gonna pump the brakes a little bit, because there was a movie I just watched recently, and I can't remember the name of it, but it was Mos Def was in it, and he was playing surgical technician assistant. And the fact that he didn't have no college education, he didn't even have training in that, but the fact that he was a wizard with his hands, he could cut, he could do things with his hands that even a trained doctor couldn't even do. And the crazy thing of it is that we don't even talk about this man, and it's crazy, because after this, I'm going to make sure that I memorize his name so that I will never forget it, so that I never forget his name, for the simple fact of that literally there is techniques that are used today that doctors use from a man that was not medically trained, that was a carpenter, like Miles Def. Now, you know what I'm talking about. Yasin Bey. Yeah, like, for real, like, if you go watch that movie, because that was one of I like seeing things like that, because I even think about the movie Rosewood with Ring Rames, even Fake Ass Roots showed me a lot. But then we have to really honestly think about the times, because I'll tell you right now, right? If they had the internet, if they had Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok in the slavery days, would they be seeing the same shit here in America as that what we're seeing all over the world? I guarantee it, they would. And yet we have people that want to call that shit out. Why don't y'all call out the shit that still goes on here in America? That's what I will never understand. We never want to take accountability for the shit that we do, but we're so quick to always call out others. That's why we'll never get accountability here in America. That's why our judicial system will never be a fair and just system, because of the simple fact that it never wants to look itself in the mirror, right? Because what's crazy is we all say that we're Christians, or that we're men of the word, right? Regardless if it's Allah, if it's Jehovah, if it's God, we all have a higher being, right? But here's my thing. We all talk to different higher beings. It doesn't matter what you call them. Still the same person. Doesn't matter what you call it. Still the same person, right? So I'm going to put it to you like this. There isn't two rights. There's only one. I want people to start standing up to the truth, because why is the lie more louder than the truth? Why are lies louder than the truth? I really want people to understand that. Why are lies louder than the truth? When it comes to out here speaking the truth, you're looked down, right? They look down on us. But yet, when you literally can put the receipts in their face, they'll double down on that shit. They'll double down. And this is my whole thing of it, is how can we expect change from people that are getting paid by the system not to change it? And this is what I want y'all to know. All of these people that are nonprofits that get money, and I'm talking about the Al Sharptons, I'm talking about the fucking Ben Crumps, I'm talking about the, and here I know I'm gonna get a lot of blowback for this, but I'm gonna say a lot of fucking names right now. A lot of names. Because at the end of the day, they're getting paid by a system. By a system to do what you're out here doing. You're not telling people to do anything differently than what the Democrats are telling people to do. You're not doing anything different. You're not going against the grain because you're telling niggas to vote red. You're telling people to fall in line with a system. You're telling people to keep on being slaves to a system. You're not even teaching people how to fight back properly. That's the crazy part for me. Because how is going red fighting? If you can't beat them, you might as well join them. That's exactly how I see it. That's why I literally cannot. You know what's crazy is, I was going to join niggas for Trump. Right? I was going to be like, you know what? I'm going to try to ride this gravy train a little bit, right? Especially here in Minnesota, being that there's really nobody here doing that shit, right? And I was like, but I'm not gonna, I can't. Because man, fuck that nigga. For real, for real. Fuck him. Fuck Biden. I'm not about to sit here and be a slave to either system anymore, to either political party. Because what the fuck? When I know y'all ain't up there doing shit for me, right? I'm going to keep it a buck. Why would I vote for any of these fucking people? They don't do shit for my community. Any Republican don't. Any Democrat don't. They go up there and they lie about it. Right? They go up there and lie about it. They'll say that they're right. That's the whole crazy part of it. That was the hardest part for me, is that there was actually black people that helped me write that resolution. Andrea Jenkins, who is a black transgender woman, female. Right? And then yet I call her out on it and never responds. But when we were writing this shit, it was easy to have meetings. You know what I'm saying? But the minute that I figured out that it was all bullshit, it was all smoke and mirrors, then I was the bad guy. That's how I was seen, as the bad guy. I was looked at as the bad guy. And that's crazy. All for sitting here calling them out is the same thing that came with the banning no-knock warrants here in Minnesota. They didn't ban it. It's with the exceptions. And people still will, it just the shit that we fall for, man. And I was the bad guy for calling it out. But it's because we're undereducated. But I'll still stand here, standing tall too, standing tall than a motherfucker. Because I know what I'm out here doing is right. I know I'm out here doing God's work. Regardless if these pastors, because that's the one that, as much as I get into it with pastors on Facebook, right? How can this motherfucker be a man of God when he keeps sitting here calling niggas bitches, and I'm not just talking about me, because when you don't agree with McAfee, he definitely will call you a ungodly name. So it's like, how do people like that get behind a pastor who doesn't? Because I'll tell you right now, I'm nowhere near godly, but I definitely walk the, because at the end of the day, you have to fight fire with fire. Evil, you can't. This is a war between right versus wrong, and I'm not out here trying to start shit. I'm out here putting fires out, right, so that we can better our community. And that's what this is about. It's not hating on these niggas, because at the end of the day, why I dislike people that shit's so fake to me, because why don't you just be real? That's why I'm saying it's that double consciousness, and we want to be like them type of people. Hell no. That's why I'm me. That's why I literally, when I go to these, I dress up how I dress up, man. Because if you ain't gonna like me, you ain't gonna like me regardless, however I'm dressed up. So it doesn't matter to me. How I talk. I'm not gonna change how I talk, because at the end of the day, you ain't gonna fucking like me anyways. So why don't I just be me? So then that way you just don't like me, fucking period, right? Because I'm not switching up. Fuck that shit. None of us should. Be you. That's what that shit that trips me out, right? Because I see all these Negroes, and I'm gonna tell you right now, man, I really, these motherfuckers tripping. Be you. Because I'll tell you right now, there's a lot of niggas out here that are sheep. They are not, that ain't them. That ain't them. They gotta wear a mask every time they come out the crib. Because they can't be really them. They gotta put on a mask. Because they can't be who they really want to be. I'm gonna tell you, and I promise you, these niggas ain't like that. Come on. That's why I laugh at that Tough Tony shit. Stop it. Because you get paid by this. You're not about to do shit, nigga. Because you get paid by the state or you get paid by the city. Sit your bitch ass down somewhere and go send one of your minions. Because that's what you do. That's literally what they do. And if y'all don't hip to the game yet, y'all will never get it. And but I'm still standing here to sit here, still saying the shit that I want to say, because it's the truth. And I'm going to stand on it. I'm going to stand on it, because there's a lot of people out here that say they real, but y'all ain't really real. Because if y'all were really real, y'all wouldn't be out here doing the shit you're doing. Right? You wouldn't be out here. That's what's tripped me out, man. Is all the we look at what is a leader. What is a leader? Because we're all leaders. Every single person is a leader. We can either choose to lead or we can choose to follow. It all comes down to a choice, right? Just like we all have the choice to make the choices in life. And some of us will say that it's peer pressure. Some of us will say they made me do it, whatever. But at the end of the day, it's still a choice, right? Because peer pressure you can make is a one-time excuse. Now, if you continually doing it over and over again, that's on you, right? You can't put that on peer pressure. You can maybe put it on peer pressure that one time because you wanted to fit in with the crowd. But at the end of the day, it's always a choice. A choice. You have a choice. And we have to stop being so fucking lenient on people and have to make them really understand. Let's stop being enablers. Because that's why I get pissed off with people. That's why I get frustrated. For the simple fact of some of you motherfuckers should definitely be knowing better by now. Yet they choose not to. Because you can literally call them out on their bullshit and they get mad. They get mad. And you can show them. Like, that's what I laugh at this tough guy shit, man. Because niggas ain't who they put on masks. It's just like with these women putting on makeup. These niggas put on masks every day they come out the crib. Because that tough Tony shit ain't really them. It ain't. It ain't. That's why they call track stars. Because you think they're going to throw all that away? That's what they'll believe in their minds. Oh, I'm just going to come on here and call you all kind of punk bitches. I'm going to call you out your name. Right? That's what it'd be like. That's what we deal with. And we see that it doesn't matter if it's Cat Williams. It doesn't matter if it's Roland Martin. What the fuck his name is. It doesn't matter who they are. When people get outside of their body, I swear, and then they want to, and then what the crazy thing of it is, oh, I'm about to get my nigga on. So basically in your mind, that's you putting on different personas because you got to put your nigga mode on. Shouldn't you be in nigga mode all the time if you're a nigga? Like, I don't even get that. That's what I don't understand, because you can be educated, right? And I'm not saying that because a person is educated or they talk a certain way that they're white. No, but don't change up being who you are. Because that's the one thing that I don't understand is we always want to be something that, or act like something that we're not, just to be accepted, right? Because I get told that all the time. Oh, pull up your pants. Pull up my pants for what? For what? Because regardless of how I'm looking, they still gonna dislike me. It doesn't matter. So why change up who I am? Because at the end of the day, at least I still got my integrity. I still have my fucking dignity. Because if people are out here, that's the one thing that I'm a man before anything. Well, then act like it. Stop bending on your values. Because I know there's people out here doing things that I know damn well is against your values. But because you're getting paid, you think that eases it. No, it doesn't. It still makes it wrong, my nigga. It still makes it wrong. No, TikTok Senate bill passes. That could ban TikTok now. Moves to the Senate. Oh, I guess it just passed in the House. Interesting. Interesting. So I want to talk about the population here for a minute too, because if you go on Pew, they do a lot of the census records. Is that the Black population has grown the fastest in states that historically have not had large numbers of Black residents. Utah experienced the fastest growth in its Black population between 2010 and 2022, with an increase of 86%. The Black populations of Hawaii and Nevada increased by 57 and 56% respectively during that span. This only counts states with Black populations of at least 25,000 people in 2010. Also, this is what I thought was interesting too, because we always talk about what happened with the Black family, what happened to the Black nucleus family. Right. Oh yeah, I'm already knowing, bro. I'm already knowing. Black Americans are less likely than other Americans to be married. About a third of Black adults, 32%, are currently married. That compares with 53% of adults who are not Black. Among Black adults, 36% of men are married, compared with 29% of women. Black women, in turn, are slightly more likely than Black men to be divorced. 14% versus 10% are widowed as well. And that just really tripped me out. But I also found something else interesting, because while the official poverty measures showed poverty rates declining between 2021 and 2022 for Black individuals, the SPM showed an increase from 11.3% in 2021 to 17.2% in 2022. This large increase in SPM poverty was due to an expiration of pandemic safety net programs like stimulus payments and expandable refund tax credits. So it really made me wonder, man, of like, and is that why y'all want to go back Trump? Because you feel like he saved us? Because yeah, I guess on paper, we did go up in wealth. So it makes, but then who's black, man? That's the one that trips me out. It's like, because everybody's so bunched in. I was trying to get where our SPM is. So supplemental poverty measure. And they first started releasing that in 2009. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics also helps with that. The SPM extends the official poverty measure by accounting for many of the government programs that are designed to assist low-income families but are not included in the official poverty measure. The SPM also includes federal and state taxes and work and medical expenses. So, I mean, it does tell a lot about the poverty rate, and it's something that we really definitely need to look at, because it is, they say everything is different. Inflation is 3.2%, which is, people will look at it and say, oh, that's not much. Well, it is if you're poor. We already have enough people living paycheck to paycheck, and that's why we don't even have a middle class anymore. And I looked that up too, while we're sitting there talking about paycheck to paycheck, because everybody likes to boast that number of that 68% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. But what they're not telling you is, when you break it down by race, is that 83% of Black Americans live paycheck to paycheck. That's a high number when you're going from the average of Americans and then you put it to Black Americans. Like, we have to start, and the thing of it is, I want people to understand too, is the more that I think about it, legislation is never probably ever going to be the route for reparations. We're going to have to do it legally. Everybody's going to have to find out their injustices, because there is no statute of limitation. I know that that's for criminal, so then we make it criminal, then to civil. You know what I'm saying? And people are like, oh, he crazy. No, I'm not. It's that y'all just niggas are scared to put in the work, man. That's the one crazy thing, because I'll tell you right now, that system, that the legislative system, is never going to save us. That's never going to get us reparations. Not when you literally have groups that are paid to counteract it or to stall it. We'll never get it. Because if we were already going to get it, why don't we have it? Because they can give reparations every day to everybody else but us. Every day. So why can't we? Why can't my ancestors? Because I am a here, right? And I probably just said that wrong. But everybody is, if we all look at it, if you find the injustices, if you go through your genealogy, if you look through your family tree, I guarantee it, every Black, if your family is a descendant of slavery, right? If your family members were slaves, you have an injustice. You have a claim. Unpaid labor, right? And probably even land, because I just found out, and here's the crazy part of it is that, when people look up land titles and different things, look what's happening in Santa Monica. You literally have a Black family that their family owned that land back in the day, and it was taken. So I'm just shows you, America does what it wants to do. So legislation ain't ever gonna help it, because I'll tell you right now, look at all the treaties that the Native Americans and America have, different states have, and they get shitted on all the time when it comes to that. You're not supposed to do certain things in Mount Rushmore area. I forget what park that is, national park, but you're not supposed to do, you know, they let off fireworks all because Trump wanted to. Literally went against a treaty that they have. And then you have people, oh, it's not about the point of that. Maybe it doesn't, nothing catches on fire. But why would you disrespect that area knowing that they had something before we were even born? Why not just honor it? That's what's crazy to me. Like, are we so quick to just say fuck history, fuck the past, and just be like, you know, it didn't matter because they're not here anymore. Nobody's here to call it out. Nobody remembers all the details. Or maybe that people aren't informed of the history, so let's just get it over on them. Like, fuck it. They don't know any better anyway, so we'll just do it. And because of, like, Walter, who is in the minority, his voice isn't heard. But if he was in the majority, right, because when the majority speaks out, even though they know that the minority doesn't have enough votes to get a bill through and have to literally not do anything but sound the alarm. And when our mainstream media doesn't want to feed it to the masses, the truth of what's going on in our communities and how, you know, what our legislators are up to, that doesn't get out, regardless if you agree with it or not. It should be, you give all that attention to one, but not the other. Because I was literally trying to find the press conference from the Republicans that they did on Monday about Mary Mortery. I can't even find the shit. But I see all them cameras that were there. It was like, damn, didn't nobody take video? It's like, the fuck, man. But y'all will be at every fucking Democratic. Just like today, you'll see everybody at the Minneapolis City Council meeting at 1:30. I think that's what time it is. Because they're talking about the Uber shit, right? And they got and then it's something about homelessness. So it's like, y'all show up for that shit. So I'm gonna get up out of here. Hope everybody has a great Wednesday. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. Come back tomorrow, same time, same place. We're gonna get into some shit. I'm sure there'll be something else we can talk about. Because I am not your motherfucking Negro. You know what I'm saying? But win or fail, freedom or jail, heaven or hell, wish me well. Y'all have a great one. Urban Conservative.